The morning sun cast long shadows across the naval base as Sarah Mitchell adjusted her crisp uniform one final time before stepping out of her car. At 28, she possessed an understated confidence that many mistook for naivety. Her auburn hair was pulled back in regulation style, and her green eyes held a determination that had carried her through 4 years of exemplary service in naval intelligence. Today marked the beginning of what she hoped would be the most challenging and rewarding assignment of her career. The Advanced Maritime Operations Training Center stood before her like a fortress of steel and concrete. This wasn't just any military facility. It was where the Navy's most elite units came to push their limits, where SEAL teams refined their deadly skills, and where only the most exceptional personnel were granted access. Sarah had fought for months to secure her position here as the new intelligence liaison, facing skepticism from superiors who questioned whether someone of her background could handle the intense environment. As she approached the main entrance, Sarah noticed clusters of muscular men in fatigues engaged in heated discussions about upcoming training exercises. Their conversations stopped as she passed, replaced by barely concealed snickers and whispered comments that she pretended not to hear. She had grown accustomed to such reactions throughout her career, but it never stopped stinging entirely. The reception area buzzed with activity as personnel moved with purpose through the corridors. Sarah presented her credentials to the duty officer, a grizzled sergeant whose weathered face suggested decades of military experience. He examined her papers with the thoroughness of someone who had seen every type of person attempt to gain access to this sacred ground. "Intelligence liaison, huh?" the sergeant muttered, his tone carrying just enough skepticism to be noticeable. "Commander Torres will want to see you right away. He's not exactly known for his patience with new arrivals, especially ones from the desk jobs." Sarah maintained her professional composure despite the obvious dismissiveness in his voice. "I appreciate the guidance, Sergeant. Could you direct me to Commander Torres's office?" The sergeant pointed down a long corridor lined with photographs of distinguished naval officers and combat operations. "End of the hall, turn right. You can't miss it. It's the one with all the noise coming from inside. Fair warning, though, he's in the middle of planning something big, and interruptions aren't welcome." As Sarah made her way down the corridor, she studied the photographs that documented decades of naval excellence. Images of ships cutting through stormy seas, aircraft launching from carrier decks, and teams of SEALs emerging from hostile waters filled the walls. Each picture told a story of courage, sacrifice, and unwavering commitment to mission success. She wondered if her own photograph might someday join this gallery of heroes. The sound of raised voices grew louder as she approached Commander Torres's office. Through the partially open door, she could see several men in combat uniforms gathered around a large table covered with maps, satellite images, and tactical documents. Their discussion was intense, with each participant contributing insights based on years of operational experience. "The intelligence we've received is incomplete," one of the men was saying, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being heard. "We need better reconnaissance before committing to this operation. Too many variables remain unknown." Another voice responded with equal conviction. "Time isn't on our side here. Every day we delay gives them more opportunity to strengthen their defenses. We have enough information to proceed if we modify our approach." Sarah knocked on the doorframe and waited for acknowledgement. The conversation inside came to an abrupt halt, and several pairs of eyes turned toward her with expressions ranging from curiosity to annoyance. She had clearly interrupted something important, and the tension in the room was palpable. A man who could only be Commander Torres stepped forward from behind the table. He stood well over 6 feet tall, with the kind of physical presence that commanded immediate respect. His dark hair was streaked with premature gray, and his brown eyes held the intensity of someone who had spent years making life and death decisions under extreme pressure. Scars on his hands and arms told stories of combat operations that would never be fully documented in official reports. "You must be the new intelligence liaison," Commander Torres said, his voice carrying a mixture of professional courtesy and barely concealed skepticism. "I'm afraid you've caught us at a rather inconvenient moment. We're in the middle of mission planning, and, frankly, we weren't expecting anyone from intelligence to show up today." Sarah stepped into the room with confidence despite feeling like an outsider among these elite warriors. "Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell, sir. I was told to report directly to you upon arrival. I understand you're busy, but I'm here to provide whatever intelligence support you need." The other men in the room exchanged glances that didn't go unnoticed. One of them, A burly man with a thick beard chuckled softly and whispered something to his companion that caused both to smirk. The casual dismissiveness of the gesture wasn't lost on Sarah, but she maintained her professional demeanor. Commander Torres gestured toward the table covered with operational materials. Well, since you're here, you might as well see what we're dealing with. This is Team 7, some of the finest operators the Navy has ever produced. We're planning a mission that requires precision, experience, and the ability to adapt to rapidly changing circumstances. He pointed to various locations on the map as he spoke. Intelligence reports suggest hostile activity in this region, but the information we've received lacks the detail necessary for effective mission planning. Perhaps you can shed some light on what your department knows about the situation. Sarah approached the table and studied the materials spread before her. The maps showed a complex coastal region with numerous islands, underwater obstacles, and potential landing sites. Satellite images revealed structures that could be defensive positions, but the resolution wasn't sufficient to determine their exact nature or current occupancy. Based on what I'm seeing here, Sarah said, her voice growing more confident as she analyzed the intelligence, your current information appears to be at least 72 hours old. The patterns of activity shown in these images suggest a more dynamic situation than what's been documented. One of the SEAL operators, a lean man with piercing blue eyes, spoke up with obvious skepticism. And what exactly qualifies you to make that assessment? Have you ever been in a combat zone, or are you basing this on textbook knowledge? The challenge in his voice was unmistakable, and Sarah felt the weight of everyone's attention as they waited for her response. This was a test, not just of her knowledge, but of her ability to stand her ground among men who had earned their respect through years of dangerous operations. I've spent the last 4 years analyzing intelligence from various theaters of operation, Sarah replied calmly. While I may not have personal combat experience, I've studied thousands of missions and their outcomes. Pattern recognition is a significant part of what I do, and the patterns here suggest your target area is far more active than these reports indicate. Commander Torres raised an eyebrow. His interest clearly piqued despite his initial skepticism. Elaborate on that assessment, Lieutenant. What specifically makes you think the situation is more dynamic? Sarah pointed to several areas on the satellite images, her confidence growing as she shared her analysis. Look at the spacing of these structures and the wear patterns on the paths between them. The imagery shows recent disturbance in areas that should be stable if the facility were operating at the levels described in the intelligence report. Additionally, the positioning of what appear to be defensive installations suggests they're preparing for a threat they consider imminent. The room fell silent as the SEALs processed her observations. Sarah could see them examining the materials with fresh eyes, considering possibilities they might have overlooked. The skeptical operator who had challenged her earlier leaned closer to the images, his expression showing grudging interest in her analysis. That's an interesting observation, he admitted reluctantly. But even if you're correct about increased activity, how does that change our operational approach? We still need to complete the mission regardless of their readiness level. Commander Torres studied Sarah with renewed attention, his earlier dismissiveness replaced by professional curiosity. Lieutenant Mitchell, what would you recommend based on your assessment? If the situation is as dynamic as you suggest, how should we modify our planning? Sarah felt the weight of the moment as she realized this was her opportunity to prove her value to the team. I'd recommend requesting updated satellite coverage of the area, preferably thermal imaging, to identify recent changes in personnel patterns. Additionally, if possible, we should consider electronic surveillance to monitor communications and determine their current alert status. The bearded SEAL who had smirked earlier now looked genuinely impressed. Those aren't bad suggestions for someone who's never been in the field. The thermal imaging especially, that could give us real-time intelligence about their operational tempo. Commander Torres nodded slowly, his respect for Sarah's analytical abilities beginning to show. Lieutenant, I have to admit I wasn't expecting this level of insight from our new intelligence liaison. Most of the analysts we work with provide information without considering its operational implications. I believe intelligence is only valuable if it contributes to mission success, Sarah responded. My job isn't just to provide data. It's to help you understand what that data means for your operations. The atmosphere in the room had shifted perceptibly. Where there had been skepticism and dismissiveness, Sarah now sensed a cautious acceptance of her presence. The SEALs were still evaluating her, but they were no longer dismissing her contributions outright. There's something else, Sarah continued, studying the maps more closely. The positioning of these structures suggests they're not just defensive installations. Look at the angles and sight lines. They're positioned to protect something specific, something valuable enough to warrant significant resources. Commander Torres leaned over the table to examine the areas Sarah was indicating. What kind of valuable asset are you thinking? Intelligence gathering equipment? Weapon storage? Given the location and the level of security suggested by these defensive positions, Sarah said, her analytical mind working through the possibilities, I'd say it's either high-value personnel or strategic materials. The investment in defensive infrastructure is too significant for routine operations. The SEAL with blue eyes, who had introduced himself as Chief Petty Officer Reynolds, nodded approvingly. That kind of strategic thinking could be useful in the field. Too many intelligence types just give us numbers without helping us understand what those numbers mean. Sarah felt a small surge of satisfaction at the acknowledgement, but she knew she was still very much an outsider among these elite operators. Earning their respect would require more than one insightful analysis. It would require consistent performance and the ability to contribute meaningfully to their dangerous work. Commander Torres gathered the materials from the table and secured them in a classified document folder. Lieutenant Mitchell, I think it's time we discussed your role here in more detail. These men represent some of the most experienced and capable operators in the Navy, and they've earned their positions through years of proven performance in extremely challenging situations. He gestured toward the SEALs, each of whom carried themselves with the quiet confidence that came from surviving numerous high-risk missions. They don't easily accept outsiders, and they have good reason to be skeptical of anyone who hasn't proven themselves under fire. Your analytical skills are impressive, but this environment demands more than academic intelligence. Sarah understood the unspoken challenge in his words. I'm here to learn as much as I am to contribute, sir. I understand that respect must be earned, and I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to prove my value to the team. That's exactly what I wanted to hear, Commander Torres replied. Over the next several weeks, you'll be working closely with Team 7 on various training exercises and operational planning sessions. They'll push you hard, question your every assumption, and test your ability to perform under pressure. Chief Reynolds stepped forward with a slight smile that didn't quite hide his continued skepticism. Fair warning, Lieutenant, we don't go easy on anyone here, regardless of rank or background. If you can't keep up with the pace or contribute meaningfully to our operations, you'll be reassigned faster than you can pack your gear. I wouldn't expect anything less, Sarah responded confidently. I didn't request this assignment because I wanted an easy posting. I'm here because I believe I can make a difference in your operations, and I'm willing to prove it. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of another SEAL, a compact man with intense dark eyes who moved with the fluid grace of someone completely comfortable with violence. Commander, we've received updated orders regarding the coastal reconnaissance mission. The timeline has been accelerated. Commander Torres accepted the sealed envelope and quickly reviewed its contents, his expression growing more serious as he read. Gentlemen, it appears our theoretical planning session has become very real. We have 48 hours to finalize operational details and deploy. The room's atmosphere shifted instantly from casual professionalism to focused intensity. The SEALs began gathering materials and discussing logistics with the efficiency of men who had performed such transitions countless times. Sarah watched with fascination as they seamlessly moved from planning mode to pre-mission preparation. Lieutenant Mitchell, Commander Torres called out as the others began to disperse. Your first real test is about to begin. This mission will require real-time intelligence analysis and the ability to adapt quickly to changing circumstances. Are you ready for that level of responsibility? Sarah felt her pulse quicken as she realized the magnitude of what she was being offered. This wasn't just an opportunity to observe elite operators at work. She was being invited to participate in an actual mission. The trust being placed in her was both thrilling and terrifying. I'm ready, sir, she replied, her voice steady despite the adrenaline beginning to course through her system. What do you need me to do? Commander Torres handed her a secure communication device and a folder containing additional intelligence materials. Your job will be to monitor incoming intelligence feeds and provide real-time analysis to support operational decisions. The men's lives may depend on the accuracy and timeliness of your assessments. As Sarah accepted the materials, she felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. This was what she had trained for, what she had dreamed of throughout her career. The opportunity to contribute directly to mission success and potentially save lives was exactly why she had fought so hard to earn this assignment. The next few hours passed in a blur of preparation activities. Sarah found herself immersed in detailed intelligence briefings, mission parameters, and operational procedures. The SEALs worked around her with practiced efficiency, each man focused on his specific responsibilities while maintaining awareness of the overall mission objectives. Despite her excitement about the upcoming operation, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she was still being evaluated by every member of the team. Their acceptance of her analytical contributions had been grudging at best, and she knew that real respect would only come through proven performance under pressure. As the day progressed and preparations intensified, Sarah began to understand the true nature of the challenge before her. These men had spent years developing the trust and teamwork necessary for survival in the most dangerous environments imaginable. She was asking to be accepted into that brotherhood based on potential rather than proven capability. The mission briefing revealed the complexity of what they were attempting. Intelligence suggested that hostile forces had established a significant presence in a strategically important coastal region. The SEALs would need to conduct reconnaissance, gather detailed information about enemy capabilities, and potentially engage in direct action if circumstances required. Sarah's role would be to provide continuous intelligence support from the command center, monitoring multiple information streams, and identifying patterns that might affect mission success. It was exactly the kind of responsibility she had hoped for, but the stakes were higher than anything she had previously experienced. As evening approached and final preparations were completed, Commander Torres gathered the team for a final briefing. The casual atmosphere of the morning had been replaced by the focused intensity that preceded dangerous operations. Each SEAL checked and rechecked his equipment while listening to last-minute updates and contingency plans. Intelligence suggests we'll be facing an unknown number of hostile personnel with access to advanced weapons and communication systems, Commander Torres explained. Our primary objective is reconnaissance, but we must be prepared for direct confrontation if compromise becomes unavoidable. Sarah listened intently as he outlined the mission timeline, extraction procedures, and communication protocols. The level of detail and preparation involved in even a relatively straightforward reconnaissance mission was far greater than she had imagined. Every contingency had been considered, every possible complication accounted for. Lieutenant Mitchell will be monitoring our progress from the command center and providing real-time intelligence updates, Commander Torres continued. Her analysis could be crucial to mission success, so all communications with her will follow standard operational security procedures. The SEALs nodded their understanding, their expressions reflecting the seriousness of what lay ahead. Sarah felt both honored and intimidated to be entrusted with such responsibility. These men were about to risk their lives based partly on intelligence she would provide, and the weight of that trust was almost overwhelming. As the briefing concluded and the team began final equipment checks, Sarah realized that her comfortable world of academic analysis was about to collide with the harsh reality of military operations. The theories and procedures she had studied were about to be tested in an environment where mistakes could have deadly consequences. The transformation from skeptical observer to trusted team member would not happen overnight, but Sarah was determined to prove herself worthy of the opportunity she had been given. Tomorrow would bring challenges she had never faced before, but it would also provide the chance to demonstrate that her contributions could make a real difference in the success of elite military operations. The command center hummed with electronic activity as Sarah settled into her workstation at 0400 hours. Banks of monitors displayed real-time satellite feeds, communication channels, and tactical displays that would keep her connected to Team 7 throughout their mission. The pre-dawn darkness outside seemed to press against the windows, but inside the command center, artificial light created an environment where time seemed suspended. Sarah had barely slept the previous night, her mind racing through scenarios and potential complications that might arise during the operation. She had spent hours reviewing every piece of available intelligence, memorizing geographical features, weather patterns, and known hostile capabilities that could impact the mission. The responsibility weighing on her shoulders felt heavier than any burden she had previously carried. Commander Torres entered the command center with the quiet efficiency that characterized all his movements. Despite the early hour, he appeared fully alert and focused on the tasks ahead. His presence immediately commanded attention from the various technicians and analysts who would support the operation from this secure facility. "Status report, Lieutenant," he said, settling into the command chair beside Sarah's workstation. Are all communication channels established and functioning properly? Sarah quickly reviewed her checklist and confirmed the operational status of each system. All channels green, sir. Satellite coverage is optimal for the target area, and weather conditions are within acceptable parameters. The team should have clear skies and minimal wind during their insertion. Excellent, Commander Torres replied, his attention shifting to the large tactical display that showed the mission area in detail. Team 7 will begin their approach in 30 minutes. Your job will be to monitor for any changes in the operational environment that could affect their safety or mission success. The next half hour passed with methodical preparation as various support personnel took their positions throughout the command center. Sarah watched with fascination as the military's intelligence apparatus came alive, with dozens of specialists focusing their expertise on ensuring the success of a small team of operators who would soon be risking their lives in hostile territory. At precisely 0500 hours, Chief Reynolds' voice crackled through the communication system from the insertion aircraft. Command, this is Team 7. We are approaching the drop zone and preparing for insertion. All systems green and team ready for deployment. Sarah felt her pulse quicken as she realized the mission was transitioning from theoretical planning to dangerous reality. Somewhere above the dark ocean, 6 of the Navy's most elite operators were preparing to leap into an uncertain situation that could quickly turn deadly. The intelligence she provided over the next several hours could determine whether they all returned safely. Team 7, this is Command. Commander Torres responded into his headset microphone. You are cleared for insertion. Intelligence indicates minimal hostile activity in your immediate area, but maintain maximum vigilance during approach. Sarah monitored multiple data streams as the SEALs executed their insertion, watching satellite feeds that showed their parachutes descending toward the coastline like tiny specks against the dark water. The precision of their landing was remarkable. Each man touched down within meters of his intended position despite the challenging nighttime conditions. Insertion complete. Chief Reynolds reported once the team had safely reached their initial position. No immediate threats detected. Beginning movement toward primary objective. For the next 2 hours, Sarah tracked the team's progress through a combination of GPS signals, satellite imagery, and periodic radio check-ins. The SEALs moved with the stealth and efficiency that had made them legendary, covering difficult terrain while avoiding detection by any hostile forces in the area. The mission's first real test came when the team approached the target facility that had been identified in the original intelligence reports. Sarah watched satellite feeds that showed a complex of buildings surrounded by defensive positions, but the images couldn't reveal whether the facility was currently occupied or what level of security might be present. Command, we have eyes on the target facility, Chief Reynolds whispered into his radio. The intelligence reports appear to be accurate regarding the physical layout, but we're seeing signs of recent activity that weren't mentioned in the briefings. Sarah immediately began analyzing the team's transmitted imagery, comparing it with the historical satellite photos that had formed the basis of their mission planning. The differences were subtle but significant. Tire tracks in areas that should have been undisturbed, equipment positioned differently than shown in previous surveillance, and defensive positions that appeared to have been recently modified. Team 7, Command copies your observations, Commander Torres responded. Lieutenant Mitchell is analyzing your imagery for tactical significance. Maintain your position while we assess the situation. Sarah worked furiously to process the new information, cross-referencing it with intelligence databases and pattern analysis algorithms that might reveal the facility's current status. The pressure of having 6 lives depending on her analysis was unlike anything she had experienced during her previous assignments. Sir, Sarah said to Commander Torres, the evidence suggests this facility has been reactivated within the last week. The positioning of equipment and the condition of access roads indicate regular use by vehicles and personnel. This is definitely not the abandoned installation described in our original intelligence. Commander Torres leaned forward, his expression growing more serious as he considered the implications. What's your assessment of current threat levels? Are we looking at a security detail or a full operational facility? Sarah continued analyzing the imagery while consulting additional intelligence sources. Based on the vehicle tracks and the positioning of defensive equipment, I'd estimate somewhere between 15 and 30 personnel currently on site. The defensive positions appear designed to repel small unit attacks, which suggests they're expecting trouble. Team 7, Be advised that intelligence indicates the facility is currently occupied by an estimated 15 to 30 hostile personnel with defensive preparations in place, Commander Torres transmitted to the field team. Recommend extreme caution in your approach. Chief Reynolds acknowledged the warning and adjusted his team's movement accordingly. Sarah watched as the SEALs shifted their approach route to take advantage of natural concealment while maintaining surveillance of the facility. Their professionalism and adaptability in the face of changing circumstances was impressive to witness. The next several hours tested Sarah's analytical skills as she processed a constant stream of information from multiple sources. The team reported periodic observations that she had to quickly assess for tactical significance, while simultaneously monitoring broader intelligence feeds for any indication of additional threats in the operational area. Around midday, the mission took a dangerous turn when Team 7 detected signs of an imminent shift change among the facility's security personnel. Chief Reynolds reported vehicle movement that suggested additional personnel were arriving to relieve the current guards, potentially doubling the number of hostile forces at the site. Command, we have multiple vehicles approaching from the north, Chief Reynolds transmitted. Appears to be a scheduled personnel rotation, but the timing puts us in a compromised position if we attempt to withdraw now. Sarah immediately began analyzing satellite feeds to track the incoming vehicles while calculating the implications for the team's safety. The new arrivals would increase the facility's security posture and make extraction significantly more dangerous. She had to quickly determine whether the team should abort the mission or wait for a better opportunity to withdraw. Sir, Sarah reported to Commander Torres, the incoming vehicles contain approximately 12 additional personnel based on their size and configuration. However, satellite imagery shows the current security team will be departing within the next hour, creating a brief window of reduced vigilance during the handover process. Commander Torres considered this information while monitoring the team's tactical situation. Lieutenant, what's your confidence level in that assessment? The team's safety depends on the accuracy of your timing estimate. Sarah double-checked her analysis, considering every variable that might affect the security transition. I'm confident in the assessment, sir. The personnel rotation appears to follow a standard military procedure that creates a predictable vulnerability window during the changeover. Team 7. Intelligence indicates a brief opportunity for safe withdrawal during the security transition in approximately 45 minutes, Commander Torres transmitted. Maintain concealment and prepare for extraction during the changeover window. The waiting period that followed was among the most tense of Sarah's career. She continuously monitored satellite feeds and communication intercepts while calculating contingencies for various scenarios that might develop. The lives of 6 elite operators depended on her ability to accurately predict the behavior of hostile personnel she had never observed before. When the security changeover finally began, Sarah's analysis proved accurate. The departing guards followed standard procedures that created exactly the vulnerability window she had predicted, allowing Team 7 to begin their withdrawal without detection. However, the mission was far from over. The team still had to cover several miles of hostile territory before reaching their extraction point. During the withdrawal phase, Sarah faced her greatest challenge, yet when intelligence intercepts indicated that hostile forces had detected signs of the team's presence in the area. Radio communications suggested a search operation was being organized to locate and eliminate the intruders, putting Team 7 in immediate danger. Team 7, be advised that hostile communications indicate your presence in the area has been detected, Commander Torres transmitted urgently. Search teams are being organized to locate your position. Recommend immediate evasion protocols. Sarah worked frantically to analyze the hostile communications and predict the likely search patterns. The enemy's response was more sophisticated than expected, indicating a level of training and organization that exceeded the original intelligence estimates. She had to quickly develop recommendations that would help the team avoid detection while moving toward their extraction point. Sir, Sarah reported, hostile search patterns suggest they're using trained tracker teams with knowledge of standard evasion routes. The team will need to avoid the most obvious withdrawal paths and use alternate routes that may extend their exposure time, but reduce detection probability. The next several hours became a deadly game of cat and mouse as Team 7 attempted to evade increasingly aggressive search efforts. Sarah monitored multiple intelligence sources while providing navigation recommendations that would keep the team away from hostile search teams. The pressure was enormous. A single mistake in her analysis could result in the team walking into an ambush. Chief Reynolds maintained professional calm despite the deteriorating situation, following Sarah's guidance while using his team's extensive training to avoid detection. The SEALs moved with remarkable stealth through terrain that offered limited concealment, relying on Sarah's intelligence analysis to stay ahead of their pursuers. The mission reached a critical point when hostile forces managed to corner the team in a valley with limited escape routes. Sarah realized that conventional evasion tactics would not be sufficient. The team needed a dramatic change in strategy to avoid capture or elimination. Command, we are pinned down in grid reference Tango 47. Chief Reynolds reported with tension evident in his voice. Hostile forces have us surrounded on 3 sides with the ocean to our back. Request immediate extraction or fire support. Sarah studied the tactical display with growing concern, realizing that traditional extraction methods would be impossible under the current circumstances. The team needed an unconventional solution that would allow them to escape without triggering a larger military confrontation that could have international implications. Sir, Sarah said to Commander Torres, I have an idea that might work, but it requires perfect timing and coordination between multiple elements. Commander Torres looked at her with surprise, not expecting tactical innovation from an intelligence analyst. Explain your concept, Lieutenant. We need options quickly. Sarah outlined her plan, which involved using the team's underwater capabilities to escape through the ocean while creating a diversion that would confuse the hostile search efforts. It was audacious and risky, but it offered the best chance of extraction under the circumstances. That's an unconventional approach, Commander Torres said after considering her proposal. But, given our limited options, it might be our best chance. Can you coordinate the required support elements? Sarah immediately began coordinating with naval assets in the area while providing detailed instructions to Team 7. The plan required precise timing between underwater movement, surface support, and diversionary activities that would mask the team's actual escape route. Over the next hour, Sarah orchestrated one of the most complex extraction operations she had ever been involved with. Every element had to execute perfectly, or the entire team could be lost. The responsibility was overwhelming, but her analytical training and growing confidence in high-pressure situations helped her manage the multiple variables involved. The plan worked flawlessly. Team 7 successfully escaped through the underwater route, while diversionary activities convinced hostile forces that the intruders had fled inland. By the time the enemy realized their mistake, the SEALs were safely aboard a naval vessel well beyond territorial waters. Command, Team 7 is secure aboard extraction vessel. Chief Reynolds reported with obvious relief in his voice. Mission objectives accomplished and all personnel accounted for. Thanks to whoever came up with that extraction plan, it saved our lives. Sarah felt a surge of satisfaction and relief as she realized the operation had been successfully completed without casualties. Her intelligence analysis had not only supported the mission but had been instrumental in saving the team when the situation became desperate. The respect she had hoped to earn from these elite operators was beginning to seem within reach. Commander Torres turned to Sarah with an expression of genuine respect. Outstanding work, Lieutenant. That extraction plan was innovative thinking under extreme pressure. The team owes their lives to your quick analysis and creative problem solving. The compliment meant more to Sarah than any commendation she had ever received. Earning recognition from experienced operators like Commander Torres and Team 7 required more than academic knowledge. It demanded the ability to think clearly and act decisively when lives hung in the balance. As the command center began returning to normal operations and debriefing procedures commenced, Sarah reflected on how much she had learned during her first real operational experience. The theoretical knowledge from her training had been essential, but the practical application under pressure had taught her lessons that could never be learned in a classroom. The mission had also revealed the true nature of the bond between elite military units. The trust that developed between team members wasn't based on rank or credentials. It was earned through shared risk and proven performance when everything was on the line. Sarah was beginning to understand what it meant to be part of something larger than herself. Chief Reynolds and Team 7 would be debriefed upon their return to base, but early reports indicated that the intelligence gathered during the mission would have significant strategic value. The facility they had observed was clearly more important than originally assessed, and the information collected would help military planners better understand the threat situation in the region. For Sarah, the successful completion of her first operational mission marked a turning point in her career and her relationship with the Special Operations community. The skepticism and mockery she had faced upon arrival were beginning to give way to cautious respect based on proven capability under pressure. However, she also realized that this was just the beginning of a much longer journey toward full acceptance among these elite professionals. Each mission would bring new challenges and opportunities to prove herself, and the standards for performance would only continue to rise as her responsibilities increased. As she completed her post-mission analysis and prepared her detailed intelligence report, Sarah felt a growing confidence in her ability to contribute meaningfully to special operations. The combination of analytical skills and operational thinking that had made her extraction plan successful would serve her well in future assignments. The day had begun with uncertainty about her role and capabilities, but it ended with clear evidence that she could perform under pressure and contribute to mission success in ways that went far beyond traditional intelligence analysis. The journey toward earning full respect and trust would continue, but today had provided a solid foundation for that future growth. 3 weeks had passed since the successful coastal reconnaissance mission, and Sarah found herself settling into a routine that balanced ongoing intelligence analysis with participation in Team 7's training exercises. The initial skepticism from the SEALs had softened somewhat, but she could still sense their careful evaluation of her contributions during each interaction. Respect in this community was earned incrementally, through consistent performance rather than dramatic gestures. The morning briefing room buzzed with activity as various special operations teams prepared for a complex multi-unit training exercise. Sarah reviewed intelligence reports while listening to conversations that revealed the depth of experience and expertise represented in the room. These men had operated in every conceivable environment, from Arctic conditions to tropical jungles, and their casual discussions about previous missions provided insights into challenges she had never imagined. Commander Torres entered the briefing room with an expression that immediately captured everyone's attention. His usual composed demeanor carried an edge of urgency that suggested something significant was developing. The conversations around the room gradually quieted as personnel recognized the signs of an important announcement. "Gentlemen, and Lieutenant Mitchell," Commander Torres began, acknowledging Sarah's presence with a slight nod, "we've received intelligence about a situation that requires our immediate attention. This is not a training exercise. We have a real-world crisis developing that demands the highest levels of skill and precision." Sarah felt her pulse quicken as she realized they were about to face another operational challenge. The success of the previous mission had given her confidence, but she understood that each new situation would present unique difficulties that would test her abilities in different ways. Commander Torres activated the large display screen and began presenting satellite imagery of a remote mountainous region. Approximately 18 hours ago, a commercial aircraft carrying humanitarian aid workers went down in this area during severe weather. Initial reports suggested mechanical failure, but subsequent intelligence indicates the crash may not have been accidental. The room's atmosphere shifted perceptibly as the operators absorbed this information. Aircraft incidents involving humanitarian personnel were always complicated, but the suggestion of hostile action added layers of complexity that would affect every aspect of a potential rescue operation. The aircraft was carrying 12 humanitarian workers from various international organizations, Commander Torres continued. They were en route to establish medical facilities in an area affected by recent natural disasters. However, intelligence suggests the region is also being used as a base of operations by hostile forces who may view the humanitarian mission as a threat to their activities. Sarah studied the terrain imagery with growing concern. The mountainous region shown on the screen presented numerous challenges for rescue operations: steep slopes, limited landing areas, unpredictable weather patterns, and terrain that would favor defenders over rescue teams. Any operation in such an environment would require careful planning and flawless execution. Chief Reynolds raised his hand and asked the question that was on everyone's mind. "Sir, what's the current status of the humanitarian workers? Do we have any indication they survived the crash?" "Emergency beacons were activated following the impact," Commander Torres replied. "However, the signals stopped transmitting after approximately 6 hours, which could indicate either equipment failure or hostile interference. We have no definitive information about survivor status." The implications were clear to everyone in the room. If hostile forces had reached the crash site first, the humanitarian workers could be dead, captured, or being used as leverage in some larger political game. Any rescue operation would need to account for multiple scenarios while operating in extremely challenging terrain. The terrain analysis shows multiple potential approach routes, Commander Torres continued, highlighting various paths on the topographical display. However, weather patterns in the region are highly unpredictable, and recent intelligence suggests increased hostile activity in areas that would provide the most direct access to the crash site. Sarah raised her hand to request permission to speak. Sir, has there been any analysis of why the humanitarian aircraft was flying through this particular region? The flight path seems unusual for a humanitarian mission. Commander Torres looked at her with approval, recognizing the strategic thinking behind her question. Excellent observation, Lieutenant. The flight path was indeed unusual, which is part of what suggests this may not have been a simple mechanical failure. Intelligence indicates the aircraft may have been deliberately diverted into hostile territory. The implications of this possibility were sobering. If the humanitarian mission had been deliberately targeted, it suggested a level of planning and sophistication among hostile forces that would significantly complicate any rescue attempt. The enemy would have had time to prepare defensive positions and potentially use any survivors as strategic assets. Team 7 will lead the rescue operation, Commander Torres announced, with support from additional units as terrain and tactical situation require. Lieutenant Mitchell will provide intelligence coordination and real-time analysis throughout the operation. Sarah felt both honored and intimidated by the assignment. A humanitarian rescue mission in hostile territory would test every skill she had developed, while the lives of innocent people hung in the balance. The pressure would be enormous, but it was exactly the kind of challenge she had hoped to face when she requested assignment to this unit. The next several hours were consumed by intensive mission planning as Team 7 analyzed approach routes, equipment requirements, and contingency procedures for various scenarios they might encounter. Sarah contributed intelligence analysis while learning about the tactical considerations that would guide the operation. The rescue mission would require a complex coordination of air and ground assets operating in one of the most challenging environments imaginable. Weather conditions could change rapidly, making helicopter operations extremely dangerous. The mountainous terrain would limit communication and make medical evacuation difficult even under the best circumstances. The crash site is located in a valley approximately 12 kilometers from the nearest area suitable for helicopter landing. Chief Reynolds explained while studying topographical maps. That means we'll need to insert at distance and approach on foot through terrain that provides numerous opportunities for ambush. Sarah analyzed satellite imagery of the region while consulting weather forecasting models that might affect mission timing. The weather patterns show a potential window of improved conditions in approximately 36 hours, she reported. However, that same window would also favor hostile movement in the area. Commander Torres considered this information while reviewing other operational factors. 36 hours may be too long to wait if there are survivors who need immediate medical attention. What are the risks of operating under current weather conditions? The question sparked an intensive discussion about acceptable risk levels versus mission success probability. These men were accustomed to operating under extremely dangerous conditions, but they also understood that unnecessary risks could compromise their ability to help the people they were trying to rescue. Sir, Sarah interjected after reviewing additional intelligence reports. I'm seeing indications that hostile forces may be using the crash site as bait for a larger trap. Radio intercepts suggest they're expecting a rescue attempt and have positioned assets accordingly. This possibility fundamentally changed the nature of the mission. Instead of a straightforward rescue operation, Team 7 might be walking into a carefully prepared ambush designed to eliminate or capture elite military personnel. The strategic value of capturing Navy SEALs would far exceed any benefit gained from holding humanitarian workers. Chief Reynolds studied the intelligence reports with growing concern. If they're using the crash site as bait, what's our best approach for avoiding their trap while still accomplishing the rescue mission? Sarah had been considering this problem while analyzing the tactical situation. The key might be to approach from a direction they don't expect while creating diversions that mask our actual intentions. If we can make them think we're doing something else, we might be able to reach the survivors before they can respond. Commander Torres looked intrigued by this strategic thinking. Explain your concept in more detail, Lieutenant. How would you structure such a deception operation? Sarah outlined her ideas for using multiple approach routes and diversionary activities to confuse hostile intelligence while the actual rescue team moved through an unexpected corridor. It was complex and risky, but it offered the best chance of reaching the crash site without walking into a prepared ambush. That's sophisticated tactical thinking. Chief Reynolds admitted with surprise in his voice. Most intelligence analysts focus on information gathering rather than operational application. Where did you learn to think like an operator? Sarah felt a flush of satisfaction at the recognition. I've spent years studying special operations missions and their outcomes. Pattern recognition isn't just about enemy behavior. It also applies to successful tactical innovations. The mission planning continued through the day as Team 7 refined their approach based on Sarah's intelligence analysis and tactical recommendations. She found herself increasingly integrated into their decision-making process as her contributions proved valuable for solving complex operational challenges. As evening approached, the team gathered for a final briefing before beginning their pre-mission preparations. The rescue operation would launch at dawn, taking advantage of early morning conditions that might provide the best opportunity for surprise and success. Intelligence indicates we'll be facing an unknown number of hostile personnel who have had time to prepare defensive positions around the crash site, Commander Torres summarized. Our primary objective is rescuing any survivors, but we must be prepared for significant resistance from well-prepared enemy forces. Sarah felt the weight of responsibility as she realized how much the mission's success would depend on her intelligence analysis and real-time tactical recommendations. The humanitarian workers were counting on their professional skills, but the SEALs would be trusting their lives to her ability to understand and predict enemy behavior. The briefing concluded with equipment checks and final communication procedures that would keep Sarah connected to the team throughout their operation. Unlike the previous coastal mission, this rescue operation would require more dynamic intelligence support as conditions could change rapidly. That evening, Sarah spent additional time reviewing every piece of available intelligence about the operational area and the hostile forces they might encounter. The mountains presented unique challenges for intelligence gathering, with terrain features that could hide enemy positions and weather conditions that limited satellite surveillance effectiveness. She also studied the profiles of the humanitarian workers they were attempting to rescue, understanding that knowledge of their backgrounds and capabilities might prove crucial during the operation. Some had previous experience in dangerous environments, while others were civilians with no preparation for survival in hostile territory. The night passed slowly as Sarah balanced preparation activities with attempts to rest before the demanding day ahead. The complexity of the upcoming operation exceeded anything she had previously been involved with, but her growing confidence in high-pressure situations helped her manage the pre-mission anxiety. At 0400 hours, Sarah arrived at the command center to begin final preparations for the rescue mission. The early morning darkness seemed heavier than usual, perhaps reflecting the serious nature of what lay ahead. Banks of communication equipment hummed with electronic activity as various support elements prepared to provide assistance to the rescue team. Commander Torres joined her at the intelligence workstation, reviewing last-minute updates and weather reports that might affect mission execution. Lieutenant, this operation will test every skill you've developed over the past several weeks. The team will be depending on your analysis more heavily than during any previous mission. I understand the responsibility, sir, Sarah replied with quiet confidence. The intelligence picture has been developing throughout the night, and I believe we have a good understanding of what the team will face. The final hour before launch was consumed with last-minute coordination and equipment checks as Team 7 prepared for insertion into one of the most challenging environments they had ever faced. Sarah monitored multiple intelligence feeds while providing updates about changing conditions that might affect the mission. At precisely 0500 hours, Chief Reynolds reported from the insertion aircraft that Team 7 was approaching the drop zone and preparing for deployment. The rescue mission that would test Sarah's abilities and potentially save innocent lives was about to begin. Team 7, this is Command, Commander Torres transmitted. You are cleared for insertion. Intelligence indicates moderate hostile activity in the general area, but specific threats around the crash site remain unknown. Maintain maximum caution during approach. Sarah watched satellite feeds showing the team's parachutes descending toward the rugged mountain terrain, knowing that the next several hours would determine whether her intelligence analysis and tactical planning had been sufficient to ensure mission success. The lives of both the rescue team and the humanitarian workers depended on decisions that would be made in the unforgiving environment of hostile mountains. As the SEALs disappeared into the darkness of the mountain valleys, Sarah began the intensive monitoring process that would keep her connected to their progress throughout the dangerous rescue operation. The command center hummed with activity as multiple specialists focused their expertise on supporting 6 operators who were about to risk everything to save innocent lives. The mission had begun, and Sarah's role as intelligence coordinator would soon be tested by challenges she had never faced before. The mountains held secrets that satellite imagery couldn't reveal, and enemy forces whose capabilities remained largely unknown. Success would require perfect coordination between intelligence analysis and tactical execution under the most demanding circumstances imaginable. The mountain rescue mission began with ominous complications as Team 7 reported weather conditions deteriorating faster than forecast models had predicted. Heavy clouds were moving through the valleys, reducing visibility and creating treacherous winds that could make helicopter extraction impossible. Sarah monitored meteorological data while calculating how these changes might affect mission timeline and tactical options. Command, we're encountering wind gusts exceeding safe parameters, Chief Reynolds transmitted from somewhere in the mountainous terrain. Visibility is dropping rapidly, and the terrain is proving more challenging than anticipated. We may need to adjust our approach route to the crash site. Sarah immediately began analyzing alternate routes that would keep the team away from the most dangerous weather while still allowing them to reach their objective. The mountains created their own weather patterns that were difficult to predict accurately, and conditions could change from safe to deadly within minutes. Team 7. Intelligence shows a potential alternate route approximately 2 kilometers east of your current position, Sarah transmitted after reviewing topographical data. This route offers better protection from wind patterns, but it will add approximately 90 minutes to your approach time. Commander Torres reviewed the same data while considering the implications of the delay. Lieutenant, what's your assessment of how the weather delay might affect hostile positioning around the crash site? Sarah consulted multiple intelligence sources while evaluating the tactical significance of the time extension. Sir, longer exposure time increases the probability that hostile forces will detect our approach. However, the weather conditions that are slowing our team are also limiting enemy mobility and surveillance capabilities. The decision to modify the approach route proved wise as Team 7 reported improved conditions along the alternate path. However, the delay created additional complications as intelligence intercepts indicated increased radioactivity among hostile forces in the operational area. Sarah worked frantically to decode the meaning behind the enemy communications. Team 7, be advised that hostile communications suggest they may be aware of your general presence in the area, Commander Torres transmitted with obvious concern. Intelligence is analyzing the intercepts, but recommend increased vigilance during your approach. Sarah studied the enemy radio traffic with growing alarm as patterns emerged that suggested a level of tactical sophistication she hadn't expected. The hostile forces weren't just random insurgents. They appeared to be well-trained personnel, using professional military communication procedures and coordination techniques. Sir, Sarah reported to Commander Torres, the hostile communications indicate they're using sophisticated counter-surveillance procedures and coordinated patrol patterns. This suggests military training and possibly access to advanced equipment. The implications were serious. Instead of facing disorganized insurgents, Team 7 might be walking into a confrontation with professional soldiers who had comparable training and equipment. The mission parameters had fundamentally changed, requiring immediate reassessment of tactical approaches and risk factors. Team 7, intelligence analysis suggests hostile forces have military training and professional organization, Commander Torres transmitted. Adjust your approach accordingly and be prepared for coordinated resistance if compromise becomes unavoidable. Chief Reynolds acknowledged the warning while maintaining his team's steady progress toward the crash site. The SEALs were accustomed to adapting to changing intelligence, but the prospect of facing professional military opposition added layers of complexity that would test every aspect of their training and experience. 2 hours into the approach, Team 7 encountered the first direct evidence of the crash site when they discovered debris scattered across a mountain slope. Chief Reynolds transmitted descriptions of what they were observing while Sarah analyzed the information for tactical significance and clues about survivor status. Command, we have visual confirmation of aircraft wreckage, Chief Reynolds reported quietly. The impact pattern suggests the aircraft broke up during the crash sequence. We're observing personal belongings and equipment scattered across approximately 200 meters of terrain. Sarah felt her heart sink as she processed this information. Aircraft that broke up during impact rarely left survivors, especially in mountainous terrain where rescue would be delayed. However, the team needed to continue their approach to confirm survivor status and gather intelligence about hostile activities in the area. Team 7, continue approach and maintain surveillance for both survivors and hostile presence, Commander Torres transmitted. Intelligence will analyze any imagery you can provide for additional tactical information. The crash site revealed a scene of devastation that exceeded even Sarah's pessimistic expectations. The aircraft had indeed broken apart during impact, with sections scattered across a steep slope that would have made survival extremely unlikely. However, Chief Reynolds reported evidence suggesting some sections of the passenger compartment might have remained intact. Command, we're identifying what appears to be a partially intact section of the passenger cabin, Chief Reynolds transmitted. Unknown if this indicates potential survivors, but we're observing signs of recent human activity around the wreckage. Sarah immediately began analyzing imagery transmitted from the crash site while consulting survival probability models for the impact conditions. The partially intact cabin section offered hope that some passengers might have survived the initial crash, but the mountainous environment and hostile presence would have created additional threats to their survival. The evidence suggests at least some passengers survived the initial impact, Sarah reported to Commander Torres. However, the timeline since the crash and the environmental conditions would have created severe challenges for their continued survival. Team 7 began a methodical search of the crash site while maintaining security against potential hostile observation. The SEALs moved with practiced efficiency through the debris field, looking for survivors while gathering intelligence about what had caused the aircraft to crash in such a remote location. The search revealed disturbing evidence that fundamentally changed their understanding of the situation. Chief Reynolds reported finding signs that survivors had been removed from the crash site by an outside party, with tracks and equipment indicating an organized extraction operation rather than a rescue effort. Command, we have clear evidence that survivors were removed from this location by unknown personnel, Chief Reynolds transmitted with tension evident in his voice. The tracks suggest they were taken alive, but the direction indicates movement toward known hostile territory. Sarah felt a chill as she realized the implications. The humanitarian workers hadn't died in the crash. They had been captured by hostile forces and were likely being held somewhere in the surrounding mountains. The rescue mission had just become a prisoner recovery operation in terrain that favored the defenders. Team 7. Intelligence confirms your assessment, Commander Torres transmitted after Sarah provided her analysis. This is now a prisoner recovery mission with unknown enemy strength and defensive preparations. Proceed with extreme caution. The tactical situation had become exponentially more complex. Rescuing prisoners from a prepared defensive position would require different skills and equipment than recovering crash survivors from an accident site. Team 7 would need to locate the prisoners, assess enemy defenses, and execute a rescue operation without getting the hostages killed in the process. Sarah began analyzing all available intelligence about potential holding sites in the surrounding area while monitoring enemy communications for clues about prisoner status and location. The hostile forces had demonstrated professional capability, suggesting they would have chosen a defensible position that would be difficult to assault successfully. Sir, Sarah reported to Commander Torres. Enemy communications include references to valuable assets that suggest the prisoners are being held for strategic purposes rather than immediate execution. This gives us time to plan a proper rescue operation. The next several hours became a deadly game of cat and mouse as Team 7 attempted to track the prisoners while avoiding detection by increasingly active enemy patrols. Sarah provided navigation guidance based on terrain analysis and enemy communication patterns while the SEALs used their stealth skills to remain undetected. The search led them deeper into hostile territory where enemy forces had established a network of observation posts and patrol routes designed to detect and eliminate intruders. Team 7 had to move with extraordinary caution while following tracks that were growing older and more difficult to follow. Command, we're approaching what appears to be a fortified position approximately 3 kilometers from the crash site, Chief Reynolds reported as the team reached a ridge line that provided observation of the surrounding area. Intelligence analysis required before we proceed. Sarah studied imagery transmitted from the team's position while consulting intelligence databases for information about the facility they had discovered. The fortified position appeared to be a permanent installation rather than a temporary camp, suggesting the humanitarian mission had been deliberately targeted by sophisticated enemy forces. Team 7. Analysis indicates you've discovered a major enemy installation that predates the aircraft incident, Sarah transmitted after completing her assessment. This suggests the humanitarian workers were deliberately diverted into a trap rather than experiencing equipment failure. The revelation fundamentally changed their understanding of the entire situation. The humanitarian mission had been targeted by enemy forces who had used sophisticated intelligence and planning to lure the aircraft into their territory. The crash had been the first phase of a larger operation designed to capture valuable hostages for political or strategic purposes. Commander Torres studied the tactical situation with growing concern as he realized the complexity of what they were facing. Lieutenant, what's your assessment of our chances for successful prisoner recovery given the enemy's preparation and defensive advantages? Sarah analyzed multiple factors while considering the limited resources available for the rescue operation. Sir, a direct assault would face significant challenges given their defensive preparations. However, the enemy's confidence in their position might create opportunities for unconventional approaches. She outlined a plan that would exploit the enemy's expectations while using Team 7's specialized skills to achieve surprise despite the challenging tactical situation. The approach would require precise timing and coordination, but it offered the best chance of rescuing the prisoners without casualties. That's innovative thinking under pressure, Commander Torres acknowledged after reviewing her proposal. The plan exploits enemy assumptions while maximizing our operational advantages. Team 7. Intelligence is transmitting tactical recommendations for prisoner recovery operations. The rescue operation that followed tested every skill Sarah had developed while working with Special Operations Forces. She provided real-time intelligence support while coordinating multiple elements of a complex plan designed to confuse enemy forces while rescuing innocent hostages. Team 7 executed the operation with remarkable precision, using diversionary tactics and specialized equipment to penetrate the enemy facility despite its formidable defenses. Sarah monitored enemy communications while providing navigation guidance that helped the team avoid detection during their approach. The prisoner rescue succeeded beyond all expectations, with Team 7 extracting all 12 humanitarian workers while avoiding casualties among either the rescue team or the hostages. The operation demonstrated the effectiveness of combining elite tactical skills with sophisticated intelligence analysis under extreme pressure. Command, all prisoners recovered and accounted for, Chief Reynolds transmitted with obvious relief in his voice. Proceeding to extraction point with no casualties among rescue personnel or recovered hostages. Sarah felt overwhelming satisfaction as she realized they had successfully rescued innocent people from a sophisticated enemy operation designed to use them as strategic assets. The mission had tested every skill she possessed while demonstrating her value as an integral member of the Special Operations community. Commander Torres looked at her with undisguised respect as the extraction proceeded smoothly toward a successful conclusion. Outstanding work, Lieutenant. Your intelligence analysis and tactical planning were essential to mission success. Those humanitarian workers owe their lives to your professional expertise. The compliment meant more to Sarah than any recognition she had previously received. Earning respect through proven performance under extreme pressure was exactly what she had hoped to achieve when she requested assignment to work with elite Special Operations Forces. As the rescued humanitarian workers were transported to safety and Team 7 returned to base, Sarah reflected on how much she had learned about herself and her capabilities during the challenging rescue operation. The combination of intelligence analysis and tactical thinking that had made the mission successful represented skills she would continue to develop throughout her career. The mission also demonstrated the true nature of the bond between Special Operations personnel and their support elements. Trust wasn't based on rank or credentials. It was earned through shared risk and proven performance when innocent lives hung in the balance. Sarah had become a trusted member of a community that valued competence above all other considerations. However, she also understood that this success was just one step in a longer journey toward full acceptance among these elite professionals. Each mission would bring new challenges and opportunities to prove her value, and the standards for performance would only continue to rise as her responsibilities increased. The rescued humanitarian workers would return to their important work helping people affected by natural disasters, while Team 7 would prepare for their next assignment in the endless struggle to protect innocent people from those who would harm them. Sarah would continue to provide the intelligence support that made such missions possible, knowing that her analytical skills could make the difference between success and failure in the most critical situations. 6 months had transformed Sarah from an outsider struggling for acceptance into a trusted member of the Special Operations Intelligence community. Her workstation in the command center had evolved into a sophisticated hub where multiple data streams converged to support Team 7's increasingly complex missions. The skeptical glances and whispered comments that had once followed her movements had been replaced by respectful acknowledgement of her proven capabilities. The morning briefing room carried an unusual tension as personnel filed in for what Commander Torres had described as a mission of unprecedented importance. Sarah noticed the presence of several high-ranking officers she didn't recognize, their uniforms bearing insignia that suggested involvement at the highest levels of military command structure. Whatever was about to be discussed clearly had implications far beyond normal special operations activities. Commander Torres entered the briefing room accompanied by a stern-faced admiral whose presence immediately commanded attention from everyone present. The casual conversations that typically preceded mission briefings died away as personnel recognized the significance of such high-level involvement in their operational planning. Ladies and gentlemen, Commander Torres began, his voice carrying an edge of gravity that Sarah had never heard before. We are about to discuss a situation that represents a direct threat to national security. The intelligence we're going to share is highly classified and has implications that extend far beyond our normal operational parameters. Sarah felt her pulse quicken as she realized they were about to confront something fundamentally different from their previous missions. The presence of senior leadership and the emphasis on national security suggested a threat level that would test every skill she had developed over the past several months. Admiral Richardson stepped forward to address the assembled personnel, his weathered features reflecting decades of experience with the most sensitive military operations. Approximately 72 hours ago, our intelligence networks detected preparations for a coordinated attack on multiple high-value targets within the continental United States. The room fell into complete silence as the implications of this statement sank in. Domestic terrorist attacks represented every military professional's worst nightmare, the failure to protect innocent civilians from enemy action on American soil. The stakes couldn't be higher, and the pressure for successful mission execution would be enormous. The attack plans were discovered through signals intelligence that intercepted communications between terrorist cells operating in various locations, Admiral Richardson continued. However, the intelligence picture remains incomplete, and we have limited time to identify and neutralize the threat before the planned attack date. Sarah immediately began considering the analytical challenges such a situation would present. Incomplete intelligence about multiple terrorist cells with unknown capabilities and timelines would require sophisticated analytical techniques and rapid decision-making under extreme pressure. The complexity exceeded anything she had previously encountered. Team 7 has been selected to lead the counter-terrorism operation due to your proven ability to operate effectively under challenging conditions with limited intelligence, Commander Torres announced. Lieutenant Mitchell will coordinate intelligence analysis and provide tactical recommendations based on evolving threat assessments. The assignment represented both the ultimate validation of Sarah's capabilities and the greatest challenge of her career. Counterterrorism operations on American soil involve political sensitivities and legal constraints that didn't apply to overseas missions. Success would require perfect coordination between multiple agencies while operating under intense public scrutiny. Admiral Richardson activated a secure display system that showed a map of the United States with several locations highlighted in red. Intelligence indicates potential targets in major metropolitan areas, but we don't have definitive information about which targets will actually be attacked or the timing of planned operations. Sarah studied the highlighted locations while considering the analytical techniques that might help narrow down the terrorist objectives. The targets appeared to be selected for maximum symbolic impact rather than strategic military value, suggesting a sophisticated understanding of American vulnerabilities and psychological warfare principles. The terrorist organization behind this plot has demonstrated capabilities that exceed typical domestic extremist groups, Admiral Richardson explained. They have access to advanced communications equipment, sophisticated planning resources, and funding that suggests international connections and support. The implications were sobering. Instead of dealing with isolated domestic extremists, they were confronting a well-resourced terrorist network with professional capabilities and international backing. The complexity of such an organization would make traditional counterterrorism approaches more difficult and require innovative tactical solutions. Chief Reynolds raised his hand to ask the question that was clearly on everyone's mind. Sir, what's our timeline for neutralizing this threat? How much time do we have before the planned attacks? Based on intercepted communications, we believe the attacks are scheduled to occur within the next 96 hours, Admiral Richardson replied. However, terrorist organizations are known to accelerate their timelines if they suspect their operations have been compromised. Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders as she realized the magnitude of what they were facing. 96 hours to identify, locate, and neutralize multiple terrorist cells operating in different locations across the country while preventing attacks that could kill hundreds or thousands of innocent people. Lieutenant Mitchell, Commander Torres said, directing everyone's attention toward her. Your role will be to coordinate intelligence analysis from multiple sources while providing real-time threat assessments to guide operational decisions. The success of this mission may depend entirely on your ability to identify terrorist intentions before they can execute their plans. Sarah nodded with determination despite feeling somewhat overwhelmed by the scope of the challenge. I understand the responsibility, sir. What intelligence assets will be available for this operation? Admiral Richardson outlined the extensive resources that had been allocated to the counterterrorism effort, including satellite surveillance, electronic intercept capabilities, human intelligence networks, and coordination with federal law enforcement agencies. The scope of available resources was impressive, but Sarah realized that having access to information was only valuable if she could analyze it effectively under extreme time pressure. The next several hours were consumed by intensive briefings as Sarah learned about the terrorist organization they were confronting and the intelligence that had revealed the plot. The enemy had demonstrated remarkable operational security, using sophisticated communication methods and compartmentalized planning that made their activities extremely difficult to detect and analyze. The terrorist network appears to be organized into independent cells that operate with minimal communication between units, Sarah observed after reviewing the available intelligence. This structure makes them more resistant to disruption, but it also creates coordination challenges that we might be able to exploit. Commander Torres looked intrigued by this assessment. Explain your thinking, Lieutenant. How would cell-based organization create vulnerabilities we could target? Sarah outlined her analysis of how independent terrorist cells would need to coordinate their activities to achieve maximum impact, despite their operational isolation. They'll need some method of synchronizing their attacks to achieve the psychological effect they're seeking. That coordination requirement creates communication vulnerabilities we might be able to identify and exploit. The discussion that followed revealed the complexity of modern counterterrorism operations, where success required understanding not just enemy capabilities, but also their psychological objectives and strategic thinking. Sarah found herself applying analytical techniques she had never used before while working under time pressure that exceeded anything she had previously experienced. Team 7 began preparing for deployment to multiple locations where terrorist activity had been detected, while Sarah established coordination procedures that would keep her connected to their operations throughout the country. The logistics of supporting simultaneous operations in different cities presented challenges she had never faced before. The terrorist cells appear to be targeting infrastructure nodes that would maximize psychological impact while creating cascading effects throughout the economy, Sarah reported after analyzing the pattern of suspected targets. Their selection criteria suggests strategic thinking beyond typical terrorist planning. Admiral Richardson studied her analysis with obvious interest. What kind of strategic objectives would drive such target selection? Are we looking at simple terrorism or something more sophisticated? Sarah had been considering this question while reviewing intelligence about the terrorist organization's background and capabilities. Sir, the target pattern suggests objectives that go beyond immediate casualties. They appear to be attempting to create long-term economic disruption and undermine public confidence in government protective capabilities. The realization that they were facing a sophisticated enemy with strategic objectives rather than simple terrorists seeking maximum casualties changed the nature of their operational planning. The counterterrorism effort would need to address both immediate threats and the longer-term implications of the enemy's strategic goals. Over the next 24 hours, Sarah coordinated intelligence analysis while Team 7 deployed to investigate suspected terrorist activities in 3 different metropolitan areas. The complexity of managing multiple simultaneous operations while maintaining coordination between various agencies tested every skill she had developed. The first breakthrough came when electronic surveillance detected communication patterns that suggested one terrorist cell was accelerating their timeline in response to increased security activities in their area. Sarah immediately began analyzing the intercepted communications while coordinating with Team 7 units in the field. Team 7 Alpha. Intelligence indicates the Chicago cell may be moving to execute their attack earlier than planned. Sarah transmitted to Chief Reynolds, who was leading the investigation in that city. Recommend immediate investigation of suspected target locations in your area. The next several hours became a race against time as Team 7 units worked to identify terrorist positions while Sarah coordinated intelligence from multiple sources. The terrorists had demonstrated remarkable operational discipline, but the pressure of accelerated timelines began creating communication patterns that revealed their locations and intentions. Command, we have identified what appears to be a terrorist safe house in the downtown area. Chief Reynolds reported from Chicago. Intelligence analysis required before we proceed with assault planning. Sarah immediately began analyzing surveillance imagery and electronic intelligence related to the suspected location while consulting databases of known terrorist tactics and procedures. The safe house appeared to be well prepared for defensive operations, but it also showed signs of recent activity that suggested the terrorists were preparing for imminent action. Team 7 Alpha. Analysis indicates the safe house is actively occupied and shows signs of weapons and explosives preparation, Sarah transmitted after completing her assessment. Recommend immediate action to prevent potential attack execution. The assault on the Chicago safe house succeeded beyond expectations, with Team 7 capturing 3 terrorists and discovering extensive evidence about planned attacks throughout the country. However, the intelligence revealed that other cells remained active and were likely to accelerate their own timelines in response to the Chicago operation's success. Command, recovered intelligence indicates coordinated attacks planned for multiple cities within the next 12 hours. Chief Reynolds transmitted from the Chicago safe house. The threat timeline has been significantly compressed. Sarah worked frantically to analyze the recovered intelligence while coordinating with Team 7 units in other locations. The terrorists had indeed been planning coordinated attacks, but their operational security had prevented complete intelligence sharing between cells. The Chicago success had provided crucial information, but time was running out to prevent the remaining attacks. The next 8 hours tested every skill Sarah had developed while working with Special Operations Forces. She coordinated intelligence analysis from multiple sources while providing tactical guidance to Team 7 units operating under extreme time pressure in hostile urban environments. One by one, the remaining terrorist cells were located and neutralized through a combination of sophisticated intelligence analysis and precisely executed tactical operations. Team 7's training and experience proved decisive in confronting an enemy that had demonstrated professional capabilities and extensive preparation. Command, final terrorist cell neutralized in Los Angeles. The last Team 7 unit reported as the counterterrorism operation reached its successful conclusion. All planned attacks have been prevented with no casualties among law enforcement or civilian personnel. Sarah felt overwhelming relief and satisfaction as she realized they had successfully prevented what could have been one of the most devastating terrorist attacks in American history. The operation had tested every skill she possessed, while demonstrating the effectiveness of combining elite tactical capabilities with sophisticated intelligence analysis. Admiral Richardson approached Sarah's workstation as the command center began returning to normal operations. Outstanding work, Lieutenant. Your intelligence coordination was absolutely essential to mission success. The country owes you a debt of gratitude that can never be fully acknowledged. The recognition from such a senior officer meant more to Sarah than any award or commendation she could imagine receiving. Earning respect through proven performance under the most extreme pressure possible was exactly what she had hoped to achieve throughout her career in military intelligence. Commander Torres joined them at Sarah's workstation, his expression reflecting the pride he felt in his team's accomplishment. Lieutenant Mitchell, you've proven beyond any doubt that you belong among the elite professionals who protect this country from its most dangerous enemies. Team 7 couldn't ask for a better intelligence coordinator. Sarah looked around the command center where she had struggled for acceptance just months before, realizing how completely her relationship with these elite operators had been transformed. The skepticism and mockery that had once followed her every movement had been replaced by genuine respect based on proven capability under the most challenging circumstances imaginable. Chief Reynolds entered the command center as Team 7 units returned from their successful operations around the country. "Lieutenant Mitchell," he said with a smile that reflected his complete acceptance of her as a trusted team member, "I have to admit I was wrong about you when you first arrived. You've proven that courage and competence come in many forms, and we're honored to have you as part of our team." The acknowledgement from someone who had initially been among her harshest critics represented the final validation of Sarah's journey from outsider to trusted insider. She had earned her place among these elite professionals through consistent performance under pressure, proving that determination and skill could overcome any initial skepticism. As the debriefing process began and the counterterrorism operation was documented for future reference, Sarah reflected on how much she had learned about herself and her capabilities during the challenging months since her arrival. The combination of analytical skills and tactical thinking that had made her contributions valuable would continue to serve her throughout a career dedicated to protecting innocent people from those who would harm them. The mission had also demonstrated the true nature of elite military communities, where respect was earned through shared risk and proven performance rather than rank or credentials. Sarah had become more than just an intelligence analyst. She was now a trusted member of a brotherhood dedicated to accomplishing the impossible under the most dangerous circumstances imaginable. However, she also understood that this success was just another step in a career that would continue to present new challenges and opportunities to serve her country. Each mission would test her abilities in different ways, and the standards for performance would only continue to rise as her responsibilities increased. The terrorist threat had been neutralized, but other enemies would emerge who would require the same combination of sophisticated intelligence analysis and elite tactical capabilities to defeat. Sarah would be ready for those future challenges, having proven to herself and others that she possessed the courage and competence necessary to protect American lives from the most dangerous threats facing the nation.